Today, we're tackling a couple of really big concepts. Huge, actually. Heroism and martyrdom.
Yeah, weighty terms.
They really are. But they're not just words, are they? They're kind of lenses.
Yeah.
How we understand people, actions, sacrifice. Even how societies decide what's worth fighting for or dying for.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating looking at our sources here is just how complex these ideas are. It's often less about the specific act itself
Wow.
and more about, perception, the stories we tell ourselves. Sometimes even pretty clear political aims.
Right.
We've got some really rich material that peels back those layers on both heroism and martyrdom.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is to explore all those different faces of heroes. What drives these sometimes incredible sacrifices? And how are these figures shaped by society? But also, sometimes, how do they turn around and reshape society itself?
That feedback loop.
Exactly. You might actually be surprised by what counts as a hero in different places, different times, and what it really means to make that ultimate sacrifice. Maybe the big question we're chasing is, are heroes born? Or are they made?
Or perhaps push.
Or pushed, yeah.
Yeah.
And when does sacrifice become martyrdom? Or maybe something less noble?
Precisely. We'll need to look at those blurred lines, the overlaps, definitely. And yeah, the sometimes cynical ways these powerful archetypes get used.
Okay.
This isn't just about definitions. It's really about understanding something fundamental about the human condition, I think.
Okay. Well, let's dive in. Let's unpack this together.
Let's do it.
Right. Heroism first. Our sources kick us off with something really insightful, I thought. The idea that the best heroes are the ones that don't want to be heroes.
That hits hard, doesn't it?
It does. What does that tell us about, genuine heroism versus maybe performing heroism?
Well, it points to a really crucial distinction, I think. The difference between heroism that just happens, springs from some inner moral compass or just circumstance.
Right.
Versus people who are actively looking for glory, chasing the spotlight.
Taking it out.
Yeah. Is someone acting out of duty, maybe even reluctantly? Or are they putting on a show for an audience, wanting that adulation? The sources seem to suggest the purest acts often come from just doing what has to be done. No fanfare needed.
That's a powerful idea. And the sources mention protecting family. They call it a high context duty. Now, just for listeners, high context here means it's not some abstract rule, right? It's deeply tied to your immediate world, your relationships, your community, maybe cultural expectations. It's like this primal pull.
Almost instinctual.
Yeah. And we also see Martin Luther King, Jr. mentioned, a moral hero. His anger at indifference, it says, fueled his moral courage.
Right. A different kind of driver.
But then, here's where it gets tricky. Pioneers of exploration, the sources say, are specifically not heroes. What's the difference there? Why draw that line?
Well, that's fascinating because it seems to separate risk-taking for personal ambition or discovery or maybe even fame from heroism that's more about selfless protection or fighting for others. For the person who's rescued, say, the outcome feels the same. They're safe.
Right. The effect is the same.
But the internal experience for the hero, that's vastly different. Our sources describe some heroes as, well, conflicted. They accept the role maybe, but they never fully get comfortable with it. They might perform acts to honor the rescued, but they themselves feel vulnerable. It's a burden, not an ego trip.
So internal versus external motivation again. But it's not always so pure, is it? The sources also show how this hero archetype can be, well, used for less altruistic reasons.
Definitely.
They mention leaders like Trump and Musk, described as having this archetype, but using it mainly to feed their voracious hunger for adulation and ratings.
Ooh, strong words.
Yeah. And public figures can become heroes just because they're popular, which the internet and social media just amplify like crazy.
It really throws a wrench in the works, doesn't it? This moves us beyond just individual acts into how society itself functions. Well, if the main driver is personal gain or just soaking up that adoration, can we still call it heroism in that traditional sense?
Good question.
Our sources point out that even dictators are often after heroism. They're chasing glory, demanding loyalty, not really offering genuine service. They're crafting their own heroic story.
So it's not just the leaders themselves. The public plays a part, too, in over-romanticizing heroes.
Seems like it. The sources use music as an example. We build these grand stories around artists, right? Even if the artists themselves might just see it as, doing their job or making their art.
Yeah, it's playing music.
Exactly. And if a story doesn't get storified, if it's not packaged with the dramatic arc, it can just get ignored. passed over.
Hollywood's the master of that, obviously.
Yeah.
Simplifying everything into heroes and villains.
And that connects to what Susan Sontag called the heroism of vision, where media presents itself as compassionate or trying to improve society.
Like highlighting suffering or injustice in the news.
Right. Which can be well-intentioned, of course, but it can also backfire. Like, remember the Arab Spring? Social media was initially seen as this amazing tool for liberation. But it could also oversimplify really complex political situations, turn them into easily shareable, but maybe incomplete heroic narratives. It becomes more about the story we consume than the messy reality.
So all this seems to lead to the idea that who gets called a hero is pretty flexible, very subjective.
Extremely.
The sources mentioned Paul Robeson. He was seen as a hero in China for promoting democracy and rights. Or, get this, even a narco figure in Mexico being seen as a hero for making it big in the U.S.
Okay.
What does that tell us? Is heroism universal at all?
Well, it strongly suggests it's not some fixed universal thing. It's more like a mirror reflecting what a specific community values at a specific time. So what one culture admires, maybe it's defying the law to get rich, or maybe it's advocating for rights on a global stage. Another culture might see totally differently.
So the hero archetype adapts. It's shaped by cultural political winds.
Exactly. Highly adaptive.
Okay, let's shift slightly. Beyond saving lives or leading nations, the sources hint at heroism in other places, like art, social change. What does that kind of heroism look like?
Yeah, if we broaden our view a bit, lots of acts of defiance, acts of innovation. Maybe they aren't explicitly called heroic in the everyday sense, but they definitely carry a heroic spirit. It's about taking a stand, often alone, against the way things are.
Like Rosa Parks, that famous photo on the bus, just refusing to move. The source talks about the photo itself, how it captured the moment. But her act, that quiet refusal, it sparked a movement. It shows that bravery isn't always loud, is it?
Not at all. Sometimes it's that steadfast no. And similarly, artists who challenge norms, like Banksy, attacking hegemonic societal forces by putting art right on the street, that's a kind of rebellion.
Artistic rebellion.
Yeah, it's resisting the status quo. The battlefield might be a wall or a gallery, not, a literal battlefield, but it still takes courage, pursuing truth through art.
And what about someone like David Bowie? The sources praise him for constantly innovating, reinventing himself, always pushing boundaries, leaving the edges rough.
Yeah, never playing it safe.
That constant pursuit of originality, of authenticity, when it would be easier to just stick with what works. That feels like a kind of artistic heroism, too. It inspires people.
It really does. And the sources note how young musicians often start by copying their heroes before they find their own sound. That inspiration matters. And the sources also point out a shift. Where we find heroes today is changing. The whole concept has widened. A powerful post on Reddit, it says, can be someone's hero now.
Wow, a Reddit post.
Yeah. And get this. The hero of 2000 is described as a digitized Marshall McLuhan.
Okay, unpack that. A digitized Marshall McLuhan.
Right. So McLuhan was the guy who talked about how media shapes culture, remember. The medium is the message. So a digitized Marshall McLuhan suggests that today's heroes might be people who really understand and master digital platforms. They use them to influence thinking, connect people, start conversations. Kind of like how McLuhan analyzed TV and print back then.
Ah, I see. So the arenas for heroism, for influence have changed.
Exactly. New platforms, new kinds of heroes.
So what we're seeing here is that heroism isn't just about, pulling someone from a burning building, important as that is.
Right.
It can also be about sparking new ideas, challenging power, or just having the sheer guts to be yourself authentically, pursuing what you think is right, even when everyone else is going the other way.
That audacious pursuit, yeah. Doing something brave, pulling no punches like the sources say, instead of just playing it safe.
Okay, let's shift gears now to an even more intense idea, martyrdom.
Right, the ultimate sacrifice.
Often for a cause. And just like heroism, how we interpret it is, well, it's subjective, often fought over.
Very much so. And what really stands out here is that martyrdom often involves this extreme act of protest, sometimes loaded with symbolism, but its impact, that's never guaranteed. It's a huge gamble, a gamble on legacy.
The sources give a really stark example, self-immolation, called the most extreme form of protest. They mention Quang Duc, the Vietnamese monk, whose heart reportedly remained intact after he burned himself. A symbol of compassion. That image shocked the world, didn't it? Galvanized people.
It absolutely did. A profound impact.
But then contrast that with Timothy McVeigh, his execution.
Wow.
He clearly wanted to make a statement with his death, too.
He did.
But the sources specifically say his attempt at martyrdom did not inspire revolutions.
Right. Which implies that true martyrdom isn't just dying for a cause. It has to actually inspire something bigger, a lasting change.
So that forces the question, what makes an martyr then? Is it just the dying part? Or is it the aftermath, the story that gets built around the death?
It seems like the narrative is key. The sources give another complex example. The female suicide bombers on the Moscow subway.
Okay.
They were described as acting in honor of their martyred Chechen husbands. That connects martyrdom directly to these deep tribal loyalties, revenge, maybe even a generational cycle of sacrifice. It's very specific, very embedded in a particular conflict and culture.
And then there's this idea of posthumous power, power after death.
Right.
The execution of Saddam Hussein, for instance. Our sources say that in parts of the Islamic world, it was immediately seen as the first step to martyrdom, making him potentially even more powerful in death. It's a potent idea.
Incredibly potent. But the sources quickly add a caution that this is often a myth that is spun by dictators, a story they or their followers want to tell, but it rarely lasts. These figures might be glorified for a while after they die, but they often fizzle out in a generation. That supposed enduring power through martyrdom often proves pretty fleeting.
So it challenges that romantic idea of eternal influence through sacrifice.
It does. It suggests the narrative has an expiration date sometimes.
Okay, here's where it gets really complex. The concept of imposed martyrdom, discussed in the context of Hamas, criticizing the, quote, arrogance of expecting people to die for someone else's cause, whether they want to or not.
That's a heavy charge.
It is, and it's put alongside this phrase, dying for Hamas, going to jail for Trump, highlighting different kinds of sacrifice. Could you unpack that connection? What's being suggested there?
Okay, well, imposed martyrdom, as the term suggests, implies coercion, heavy pressure, where an individual's choice is basically overridden by a group or an ideology.
Right, questioning the ethics of demanding that price.
Exactly. So when the source says dying for Hamas, it might imply a situation where individuals feel immense pressure, maybe even manipulation, to sacrifice themselves for the collective cause. Their lives seen as expendable for a political or religious goal?
Okay.
Putting that next to going to jail for Trump? Well, that points to a different kind of sacrifice. Maybe still driven by loyalty to a leader or cause, but involving accepting legal consequences, jail time. Perhaps not always under the same immediate life or death pressure or expectation of dying.
So it's about agency, intention, external pressure.
All of those, I think, and it brings up that core question again. Was he murdered or was he martyred? How we answer that depends entirely on the lens we're using, the moral framework, the social context.
And the martyr archetype itself, it can be triggered, even exploited by events, like an assassination attempt at a rally. A political base, the source uses Trump's base as an example, might milk for all it's worth.
Right. Turning victimhood or near victimhood into political fuel.
It just shows these archetypes aren't just history book concepts. They're active tools, sometimes used cynically, right now, for political gain.
Absolutely. Very much alive and kicking in modern politics.
Now, even when the sources don't explicitly use the word martyrdom, they talk a lot about profound sacrifice, sometimes even death, for the sake of new ideas. How does that fit in?
It connects right back to that courageous pursuit of what is right. There's a powerful line in our material. Anything new will probably be well beyond the shock threshold to where people are actually dying for the sake of a new idea.
Wow, dying for an idea.
Yeah. It directly links pushing boundaries, introducing genuinely groundbreaking concepts to the ultimate sacrifice. Because truly, new ideas can feel like an existential threat to the established order.
And real greatness, the sources say, is that courageous pursuit of what we see as right. And crucially, not changing your mind just because the status quo pushes back.
Standing firm.
Yeah, and an unwavering commitment. Even if it means standing alone, that feels heroic in itself. Intellectually, morally heroic.
Definitely. And think about the life of an activist artist. It's often inherently a solo path, right? If you're openly expressing strong political views, it can shut doors, hinder collaboration. So you're making a personal sacrifice, maybe career opportunities for your convictions.
Right. There's a cost.
There is. And it's noted that intense political activism in art, while it provides that external drive, can sometimes squelch spirituality in art. It might leave people feeling empty within if the art just becomes a mouthpiece, losing that deeper human exploration.
That's an interesting tension. And what about photojournalists, like the Reuters photographer mentioned in Iraq, taking extreme risks?
Yeah, putting their lives on the line to capture the reality of war for us.
These brave artists taking those huge risks to bring suffering from far away onto our comfortable screens, that's dedication to truth, isn't it? Regardless of the danger.
It absolutely is. Bringing uncomfortable truths to light, even at immense personal cost.
That whole pursuit, resisting the superficial, the easy answer, it feels heroic. Pulling no punches, tackling the tough stuff, the dangerous stuff.
Instead of playing it safe.
Yeah.
It's that conviction, pursuing something deeper, an idea, a truth, even if it might mean dying for it. And that's where heroism and martyrdom really start to blur, isn't it?
They really do. That line gets very fuzzy.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's try to bring this all together. Heroism, martyrdom. What's the big picture takeaway when we look at both?
Well, what seems crystal clear is that both are heavily, heavily shaped by perception, by narrative, the stories we tell, the stories we choose to believe, and they can absolutely be exploited for political ends. You see figures who embody these dual archetypes. You might be a celebrity tyrant to one group and a protagonist hero to another at the same time.
And the motivations driving them, they're all over the map.